the next president of the United States, Joe Biden.
It's June 9th, 1987, and then Senator Joseph R. Biden Jr. has just entered the presidential race. Look familiar? The 2020 race is Biden's third attempt at the Oval Office. He first ran for president 32 years ago. For those who may have forgotten or weren't around in '87, here's what happened. Biden started off as a strong contender.
Senator Joseph R. Biden Jr. of Delaware.
But his campaign was marred by some early blunders, like this one.
What law school did you attend, and where did you place in that class? And the other question is...
I think I probably have a much higher IQ than you do, I suspect.
And he exaggerated his academic record in law school.
Went back to law school, and in fact ended up in the top half of my class.
And then there were moments like this, repeated later during the campaign.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I marched with tens of thousands of others to change attitudes.
But he never actually marched in the civil rights movement at all. Ultimately, it was accusations of plagiarism in his speeches.
I did not know that was a Robert Kennedy quote. My mistake.
That forced him to drop out of the race.
I made some mistakes.
After that, Biden stayed in the Senate, ran again in the 2008 race, became the vice presidential nominee, and then the vice president. Laid low for a little while, and now we're here.
If I'm going to be able to beat Donald Trump in 2020, it's going to happen here.
And certain things, including a handful of Biden's vulnerabilities, haven't changed. He's still leaning into some of the core messages he highlighted during his first presidential run, often emphasizing his profile over policy, promising to put the country on the right path after what he sees as the ills of Republican administrations. Here he is in 1987.
I tell you today that America is a nation at risk.
In 2007.
This president's going to be judged in his administration, judged very harshly by history.
And in 2019.
We're in the battle for the soul of this nation.
But Biden has struggled to project himself as a man in step with the times, and parts of his political history continue to haunt him, like his role in the questioning of Anita Hill in 1991.
It is appropriate to ask Professor Hill anything any member wishes to ask her to plumb the depths of her credibility.
And more recently, it was his relationship with personal space.
The boundaries of protecting personal space have been reset, and I get it.
Throughout his more than 4-decade-long career in politics, Biden has become known for his freewheeling charm and authenticity.
I've been referred to as middle-class Joe. It's not always meant as a compliment.
But his candor has also gotten him into some trouble.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
As the Democratic frontrunner, Biden will be under a microscope. The question is whether he can harness the folksy appeal he's become known for without repeating the mistakes of the past.
The former vice president growing visibly testy a little bit after it was insinuated that he had not done enough to prioritize the black community.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. Come on. Take a look at the record.
Mike, how's that playing out this morning?
Well, Eamon, as you know, I've covered former Vice President Joe Biden for a long time, and without fail, I think he tends to get as feisty as you just saw him there, most when he feels like his record is being attacked in ways that are unfair. And this was a longer conversation in which they discussed a range of his past positions on the crime bill, on marijuana legalization, a number of other issues in which he was defending his past record. It's worth noting, for instance, Biden was the only Democratic candidate, one of the few who didn't agree to do an interview with the Breakfast Club during the primary. Well, we're seeing now, of course, the Trump campaign really pouncing quickly. One tweet calling it disgusting. We saw Don Jr. tweet calling this comment racist. I think it's important to put this into context as well. What this interview shows is the real disparity that while Joe Biden won the African-American vote pretty handily overall, in South Carolina, for instance, he won 75% of black voters over 60, but tied Bernie Sanders with voters under 30, and obviously a range in between. So work to do clearly for Joe Biden in communicating his message primarily to younger African-American voters.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, Mike Memley, thanks for that update. USA!
If I win my race and we get it just the way we want it, and I think we're going to win it big, I'm looking at the competition. You sort of dream about competition like that, but who knows? Who knows? I got Boot Edge. I got them all. I got Beto. Beto's falling fast. What the hell happened? Remember about four weeks ago, he said, I was made for this. He was made for it. He was made to fall like a rock. What happened to him? But he's trying to restart his campaign. That generally doesn't work out too well. Political geniuses, when you have to restart your campaign, history has said that that does not work out well, right? History has said that that's trouble. But he's going to restart his campaign. But I'm looking at it. I don't know what the hell happened to Biden. What happened to him? I'm looking. I said, that doesn't look like the guy I knew. What happened to him? And Bernie, you know, Bernie's crazy. Bernie's crazy. But Bernie's got a lot more energy than Biden, so you never know. No, Bernie's got a lot of energy. But it's energy to get rid of your jobs. He's got the opposite energy that you produce. Not good energy. You don't like his energy. But, you know, so it's going to be one of these people. Pocahontas, I think, is probably out. Boy, you got some beauties there. 350 million people, and that's the best we can do. I don't think so. Even as Democrats, I could pick better than that.
Here and now, I give you my word. If you entrust me with the presidency, I will draw on the best of us, not the worst. I will be an ally of the light, not the darkness. It's time for us, for we the people, to come together. And make no mistake, united we can and will overcome this season of darkness in America. We'll choose hope over fear, facts over fiction, fairness over privilege. I'm a proud Democrat, and I'll be proud to carry the banner of our party into the general election. So it's with great honor and humility I accept this nomination for President of the United States of America. But while I'll be a Democratic candidate, I will be an American president. I'll work hard for those who didn't support me, as hard for them as I did for those who did vote for me. That's the job of a president, to represent all of us, not just our base or our party. This is not a partisan moment. This must be an American moment. It's a moment that calls for hope and light and love, hope for our future, light to see our way forward, and love for one another.
There are those that say, you can test too much. You do know that.
Who says that?
Oh, just read the manuals, read the books.
Manuals?
Read the
What
books.
manuals?
Read the books.
What books?
What testing does wait a minute, John. Let me explain. What testing does, it shows cases. It shows where there may be cases.
I've covered you for a long time. I've gone to your rallies. I've talked to your people. They love you. They listen to you. They listen to every word you say. They hang on your every word. They don't listen to me or the media or Fauci. They think we're fake news. They want to get their advice from you. And so when they hear you say everything's under control, don't worry about wearing masks, I mean, these are people, many of them are older people,
What's
Mr.
your
President.
definition of control? Yeah. Under the
It's giving them a false sense of security.
Now, I think it's under control. I'll tell you what.
How? 1,000 Americans are dying a day.
They are dying. That's true. And it is what it is. But that doesn't mean we aren't doing everything we can. When I took over, we didn't even have a test. Now, in all fairness,
why would you have a test?
There was no test.
The virus
for
didn't
this.
exist. How would you have a test?
I was going to say.
Okay. Death is going up now.
Okay,
and it's 1,000 a day.
If you look at death.
Yeah, it's going
let's
up
look.
again.
Let's look.
Daily death.
Take a look at some of these charts.
I'd love to.
We're going to look.
Let's look.
And if you look at death.
Yeah. It started to go up
Here's
again.
one. Well, right here, the United States is lowest in numerous categories. We're lower than the world.
Lower than the world?
Lower than
What is that?
Europe.
In what?
Look.
In what?
Take a look. Right here. Here's case death.
Oh, you're doing death as a proportion of cases. I'm talking about death as a proportion of population. That's where the US is really bad. Much worse than South Korea, Germany, etc.
You can't do that. You have
Why
to go.
can't I do that?
You have to go by You have to go by where, look, here is the United States. You have to go by the cases. The cases
Why not as a proportion of population?
When we have somebody, what it says is when you have somebody that has, where there's a case, the people that live from those cases.
It's surely a relevant statistic to say if the US has X population and X percentage of death of that population versus South Korea.
No, because you have to go by the cases.
Well, look at South Korea, for example. 51 million population, 300 deaths. It's like, it's crazy compared to...
You don't know that.
I do. It's
you don't know that.
You think they're faking their statistics? South Korea?
I won't get into that because I have a very good relationship with the country. But you don't know that.
1,000 Americans are dying a day. But I understand on cases, it's different.
No, but you're not reporting it correctly, Jonathan.
I think I am, but it's been widely reported that the US has intelligence indicating that Russia paid bounties or offered to pay bounties to Taliban fighters to kill American soldiers. You had a phone call with Vladimir Putin on July 23rd. Did you bring up this issue?
No, that was a phone call to discuss other things.
And you've never discussed it with him?
I have never discussed it with him, no. I would. I'd have no problem with it.
But you don't believe the intelligence? It's because you don't believe the intelligence, that's why.
It never reached my desk. You know why? Because they didn't think it was intelligence. They didn't think it was real.
It was in your written brief, though, apparently.
They didn't think it was worthy of... I wouldn't mind. If it reached my desk, I would have done something about it. It never reached my desk because...
Do you read your written brief?
I do.
I
read a lot.
Really?
You know, I read a lot. They like to say I don't read. I read a lot.
Your daily intelligence brief?
I comprehend extraordinarily well. Probably better than anybody that you've interviewed in a long time. I did more for the black community than anybody with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln, whether you like it or not. People say, oh, that's interesting.
You believe you did more than Lyndon Johnson, who passed the Civil Rights Act?
I think I did, yeah.
How?
Because I got criminal justice reform done. I got prison reform.
Lyndon Johnson.
I've done things.
He passed the Civil Rights Act.
How has it worked out? If you take a look at what Lyndon Johnson did.
You think the Civil Rights Act was a mistake?
How has it worked out? Because frankly, it took a long time. But for African Americans, under my administration, Jonathan, under my administration, African Americans were doing better than they had ever done in the history of this country. The office of the presidency, we have to be sharp. So they were saying all these different things. It was going all over. Whichever stuck, none of it stuck, fortunately. But one of the reasons it didn't is that I took a test. I said to the doctor, it was Dr. Ronnie Jackson, I said, is there some kind of a test, an acuity test? And he said there actually is, and he named it, whatever it might be. And it was 30 or 35 questions. The first questions are very easy. The last questions are much more difficult. Like a memory question, it's like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. So they say, could you repeat that? So I said, yeah. So it's person, woman, man, camera, TV. Okay, that's very good. If you get it in order, you get extra points. Okay, now he's asking you other questions, and then 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes later, they say, remember the first question? Not the first, but the 10th question? Give us that again. Can you do that again? And you go person, woman, man, camera, TV. If you get it in order, you get extra points. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy. And that's not an easy question. In other words, they ask it to you, they give you 5 names and you have to repeat them, and that's okay. If you repeat them out of order, it's okay, but you know, it's not as good. But then when you go back about 20, 25 minutes later and they say, go back to that question, they don't tell you this, go back to that question and repeat them. Can you do it? And you go, person, woman, man, camera, TV. They say, that's amazing. How did you do that? I do it because I have like a good memory, because I'm cognitively there. Now, Joe should take that test.
You've seen deaths up in New York, deaths up in Chicago, shootings. How do you explain it, and what are you going to do about it?
I explain it very simply by saying they're Democrat-run cities, they're liberally run, they're stupidly run.
Liberal Democrats have been running cities in this country for decades.
Poorly.
Why is it so bad right now?
They've run them poorly. It was always bad, but now it's gotten totally out of control, and it's really because they want to defund the police, and Biden wants to defund the police.
Sir, he does not.
Look, he signed a charter
with Bernie Sanders.
It says nothing about defunding the police.
Oh, really? It says abolish. It says fund. Let's go.
All right.
Get me the charter, please.
All right. So that led to a very interesting exchange where he had his staff go out and get the highlights from that 100-page compact that the Biden team and the Trump team, rather the Biden team and the Sanders team had signed. And he went through it and he found a lot of things that he objected to that Biden has agreed to, but he couldn't find any indication, because there isn't any, that Joe Biden has sought to defund and abolish the police. But let me say, he takes some shots at Joe Biden that I've never heard before. And if it looks like it was hot on that patio right outside the Oval Office there, it was about 100 degrees, and he kept saying, whose idea was this? Well, of course, it was the president's idea. But as he said, he wanted to see me sweat.
Joe Biden's son, Hunter, is emerging as an issue in the presidential campaign. We're learning new information tonight about a Senate Republican investigation into the younger Biden. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel has details.
The 87-page report says in 2015, two senior State Department officials, George Kent and Amos Hochstein, raised concerns to Vice President Joe Biden's office and even with Biden personally about the perception of a conflict of interest regarding Hunter Biden's role on Burisma's board. Quote, despite the efforts of these individuals, their concerns appear to have fallen on deaf ears. And warning of the risk of undermining U.S. policy in Ukraine, quote, officials within the Obama administration ignored the glaring warning signs when the vice president's son joined the board of a company owned by a corrupt Ukrainian oligarch. Senate Republican Chairman Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley led the report, and no Treasury records show potential criminal activity relating to transactions among and between Hunter Biden, his family, his associates, and foreign nationals. A key Senate Republican calls the findings extremely troubling.
There's been a lot done, a lot of interviews. There's a lot to see there, and this is very serious.
A spokesman for the Biden campaign says this is all about the election. Quote, an attack founded on a long disproven hardcore right-wing conspiracy theory that hinges on Senator Johnson himself being corrupt, and that the senator has now explicitly stated he's attempting to exploit to bail out Donald Trump's re-election campaign. The Senate Democratic leader blasted this probe.
Senators Grassley and Johnson should reimburse taxpayers for the money they wasted. The Johnson report should be relegated to the dustbin of history.
Senator Tom Cotton says there's no reason to believe these practices would change if Joe Biden's in the White House.
For decades, Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's brother have been coasting off of his public office, earning millions of dollars from Chinese firms and Ukrainian oligarchs.
In a statement, the Trump campaign says this report is further evidence that if Joe Biden wins, China and many other foreign interests with a financial stake in the Biden family win too.
USA, 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 USA.
The vice president is the head of the task force and knew on January 28th how serious this was. And then thanks to Bob Woodward, we learned that they knew about it. And then when that was exposed, the vice president said, when asked, well, why didn't y'all tell anybody? He said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get
no, but Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I want to add, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Because the reality is that we're going to have a vaccine, Senator, in record time, in unheard of time, in less than a year. We have 5 companies in phase 3 clinical trials, and we're right now producing tens of millions of doses. So the fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration, I think is unconscionable. And Senator, I just ask you, stop playing politics with people's lives.
On the issue of the economy, I think there couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden believes you measure the health and the strength of America's economy based on the health and the strength of the American worker and the American family. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who measures the strength of the economy based on how rich people are doing, which is why he passed a tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America, leading to a $2 trillion deficit that the American people are going to have to pay for. On day one, Joe Biden will repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it.
But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes. It's really remarkable to think, Susan. I mean, right after a time where we're going through a pandemic that lost 22 million jobs at the height, we've already added back 11.6 million jobs because we had a president who cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, fought for free and fair trade, and secured $4 trillion from the Congress of the United States to give direct payments to families, save 50 million jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program. We literally have spared no expense to help the American people and the American worker through this.
Senator Harris.
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is, Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well, wait.
I'm speaking.
It'd be important if you said the truth. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. That was tax cuts that gave the average working family $2,000 in a tax break every single year. Senator,
that is absolutely not true. That
is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then have a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay.
I must tell you, this presumption that you hear consistently from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that America is systemically racist, and that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities, is a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And I want everyone to know who puts on the uniform of law enforcement every day that President Trump and I stand with you. And it is remarkable that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats, Senator Harris, you got up and walked out of the room. And then you filibustered Senator Tim Scott's bill on the Senate floor that would have provided new accountability, new resources. Look, we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement, improving public safety, and supporting our African American neighbors and all of our minorities. Under President Trump's leadership, we'll always stand with law enforcement, and we'll do what we've done from day one, and that is improve the lives of African Americans.
Thank you, Vice
Record
President
unemployment, record investments in
Pence, your time
education,
is
and we'll
up.
fight for school choice for all of our minorities.
Thank you, Vice President.
There's a furious reaction today after claims that President Trump called fallen American heroes losers and suckers. A Twitter page titled "Not a Loser" is trending. "My grandfather was killed by a landmine while freeing Europe," one veteran's family writes. "He was 29. He was neither a sucker nor a loser. My dad served during Vietnam. Not only did he serve, he volunteered. Most definitely not a loser." Former Army Airborne Ranger, Bronze Star recipient, deceased. "My brother, not a loser." The uproar comes after a new Atlantic magazine report about President Trump's visit to France in 2018 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. Trump was scheduled to pay his respects at a venerated U.S. military cemetery where more than 2,000 American servicemen are buried. But he bailed out. The reason given at the time was that rain had grounded Trump's helicopter, and the Secret Service did not want him traveling by motorcade. His then Chief of Staff, John Kelly, a retired general, attended a wreath laying instead. The Atlantic now claims Trump told his senior staff, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." It also says Trump referred to the fallen soldiers as suckers for getting killed.
It's a fake story, and it's a disgrace that they're allowed to do it.
A fuming president denied the claims today.
It was a terrible thing that somebody could say the kind of things, and especially to me, because I've done more for the military than almost anybody else.
The Atlantic reporting is based on 4 cowardly anonymous sources who probably do not even exist. Meanwhile, within hours, 10 sources, 10, went on the record debunking these lies.
I stand by my reporting. I have multiple sources telling me this is what happened, and so I stand by it.
Joe Biden pounced on the report today.
If these statements are true, the president should humbly apologize to every Gold Star mother and father and every Blue Star family that he's denigrated and insulted. Who the heck does he think he is? Vote now.
Are you gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're
to
a
answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the
You want to
question
put a
is
lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justice,
the
radical
question,
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is your,
up, man?
listen,